Welcome to Embrace the Spiritual Podcast. Join friends Michelle and Dawn as they share tips on how you too can open your heart, raise your vibration, and reclaim your sovereignty. Hear what they have experienced and overcome in their spiritual journeys while navigating this expansive spiritual multiverse. Discover how they transform their soul lessons from ordinary into extraordinary.
Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual Podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Go to embracethespiritual.com for bonus content and a list of upcoming episodes. To book an aura regression, raw Reiki, or Akashic reading with Dawn, go to her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com. And to book an aura regression, raw Reiki, Akashic reading, or to do a home or pet clearing, visit Michelle on her website at energetisembrace.com. Welcome back to this episode where we are going to chat about collective timelines. So last episode, we talked about individual timelines. And this one, we're going to talk about a few things that we think are relative to collective timelines, including talking about some of the Mandela effect. I think if you haven't heard that term, not sure, you definitely are unplugged from social media, so good for you. But we'll talk about that and kind of our thoughts of what we feel is actually the story behind Mandela effect, at least give you our observations. And maybe we'll throw in some stuff about parallel timelines. So buckle up. This is going to be a little bit of you might think a crazy ride, but this is the day-to-day that Dawn and I live in, and we want to share with you of what collective timelines can do as an influence for our day-to-day lives and our individual timelines, how we feed into it and how the collective can feed into us.
I'm going to bring it down to basics. What a collective timeline is based on frequency. Are we on a low frequency? Are we living in fear? Are we living in this programming of terror? Think of what is on the news, what happened in the 1930s. That is a collective low vibration timeline. I don't consent to that. That's why I don't watch the news. There's one day a week that I unfortunately have to watch the news because it's on while I'm at work. But as I'm watching the news, I do not consent to the timelines that they are trying to create, because I realize with all the studying that I've done, with the feelings that I feel, they are trying to manipulate us. And I personally do not want to be manipulated into these collective negative timelines. And I think everybody needs to start standing up for themselves against these timelines. The fear of the nuclear war, that was a timeline that was going on in New York City. And I just said, I don't consent to that. Why would you even put this out there? Because what people are feeling is what they create. We've said it time and time again. What are you going to create in this timeline? Are you going to be positive, happy, joy, abundant? Or are you going to be lacking and not getting your basic needs met for you? How do you want to live your life? Start asking that with every decision that you make, because I don't want to be on that low timeline of not being able to be healthy, happy, and safe.
For sure. And it's a great point about those bigger collective timelines. And we've said this before, where it's kind of like throwing shit up against the wall and see what sticks. That's what is happening in a lot of these stories that are coming out. As we said, they're potential timelines and they can become a reality if we focus on them. So if everyone's going, oh my gosh, there's going to be a war in this country. Well, if we're all going to focus on it energetically, we're going to create that coming into existence. One of the things that I read online when I was doing a little bit of background work on collective timelines, because I was just curious to see what is out there, because you potentially are going to do some research of your own. So I wanted to kind of find out some of the information. And I came across a Japanese word, and I'm not even going to, well, maybe I will attempt to say it. Ichigo Ichii, I think. Ichigoichie. And its meaning is, or that word means one time, one meeting. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because it says treasure each moment with one another, for each moment is always a once in a lifetime event. And I thought, you know what? That's pretty powerful, because really the moment we're in now, our present moment, we always talk about being present. I think this just really hits home. Cherish where you are at today. Whatever you've gone through, whatever the world is going through, cherish where you are at today. Because when you have that gratitude, guess what? You're raising your vibration and you're shifting things. And that's really why I wanted to bring that word up. I just thought it was cool. I've never seen that before. And I think it's really powerful when we stay in the now and not these potential crises that are out there. Because when you do watch the news, and I know lots of you do, some of it you feel you need to, but be careful what you're attaching to from a story perspective. What is happening now in my present moment? What can I control? And having an awareness of things, just remember it's only a potential. When you focus on it, it could become a reality. So just wanted to kind of insert that from a collective timeline perspective is, at the end of the day, the universe is infinite. It is so vast. There are infinite potentials of timelines for individuals and the collective. So nothing is set in stone that we can't change. And you have that power. Even if you feel that, I'm just one person. Yes, you are just one person, but there could be 1,000 other people thinking, I'm just one person. And if they have that same thought, that's where timelines can shift, is when people get into the same frequency and concept that I choose to be in a world that looks like this, with, love and people getting together, kind of ditching technology, because, having that human interaction is what really fills your soul, I feel. And
I like how you're talking about ditching technology. We're possibly headed toward a timeline, and I'm not consenting to it, where we are giving our power away to AI. These self-driving cars, our phone, our Alexa, doing everything for us. Do you know that a phone, once that battery dies, has no vibration? It has none. People are keeping themselves connected to this 3D timeline by giving their power away to this technology. Yes, I realize that you're listening to us on a podcast, and that is...
Yeah, please still listen.
But we're using this to shift that timeline, to get our voices heard, or even I can feel it in my heart, that energy vibrating out to you, so that we can shift this, because I'm all about shifting. It is the year of the dragon. My dragons are like, we are shifting stuff. I don't care whether you are conscious of this happening or not, but it's going to happen. They want it to shift. It's going to shift, and it may seem a little exciting, like going on a roller coaster, and terrifying, but it's all good. So hold on. We are shifting the timelines, and I don't consent to this AI. Let's stop letting our cars tell us things. We deprogram our car from saying, oh, there's a weather alert. If I'm driving on the road, it seems safe. It's safe. You cannot predict that there's going to be jumping out in front of you. And I actually have seen timelines of that happening. So, and I clear it before it happens, because we have that power to. We can manifest whatever we want. What are you going to manifest? Are you going to manifest that AI, takes care of you when you're old? Or are you going to manifest that you're going to be healthy and strong timeline so that you can take care of yourself when you're older? It is all about intention and what you do to yourself. So thank you for bringing that up, because I'm not consenting to this AI timeline ever.
Absolutely. And I'll continue with this point. And Dawn has just said it as well. You are powerful, whether you actually feel you are or not, because you are your own universe. You're creating your universe in every moment. A minute goes by, you're creating a new universe, because every thought and action creates our timelines and our universes. So jump onto a timeline, so to speak, where you want to live a higher vibrational life. Everything's a choice. And when we feed into these conversations, whether you're in a small group of people or it's online, you're commenting on a post, if there's a lot of negativity happening in the conversation or online, by you participating in, you're connecting into that timeline. So not that we want you to be fearful in the moments, thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to, attach to an inorganic timeline. It is just an awareness, and think, is participating in this for my highest good? Am I really going to change it by feeding into the negative about this? You're not. You're just feeding the negative. So conscious languaging, switch it around and reframe how you want that timeline to look, not focusing on what it looks like in the negative and the inorganic. And speaking of inorganic timelines, I believe we brought this up before, but really those are the timelines that the programming that we've grown up with that says we have, children should be seen, not heard, all of those inorganic timelines. It is as simple as saying, I do not consent, and don't continue to live that way or pass along that verbiage to younger generations. Look for those things that from a past perspective, because in the 3D world, it's viewed as the past is done, right? The present is now and the future hasn't happened. But in reality, when you move beyond the 3D, they're all fluid and they're all happening at the same time. So we have the ability, yes, we may have grown up with certain programming, and we can still send love and shift that from the past, which ripples to today. So even when you talk about past lives, if you have an Akashic reading with Dawn or I, and we talk about past lives, we call it past lives because that's just the easier way to describe it. But it's really a life that you have lived before, that your soul has participated in before, but you can still shift. You may not be able to shift physically what happened, but you can shift the energy and the perception around it. And that is huge because, Akashic readings can be very healing in those timelines because generational trauma, those are timelines. The things that our ancestors have gone through and that have been passed along. So the you today was an egg in your mother's womb when she was an egg in her mother's womb. So your maternal grandmother, whatever generational things were happening to her in that moment, affect you today. So from a timeline perspective, if you don't maybe know what was happening, go back and find some information about maybe what was happening with your grandmother at that time when she was pregnant with your mother, and shift those timelines, heal those timelines, because they could be affecting you and you don't even realize they're affecting you. So just kind of a different flavor and maybe tip to recognize like there might be something that you're fearful of in the current time and it's keeping your vibration a little bit lower. Well, it might be something from your grandmother that she experienced. I'm in my early 50s, so the grandparents are wartime. Well, there's a lot of things obviously going around at that time and a lot of things that they were having to deal with. So just want to give you that little nugget of information to help you heal those timelines so that you can shift and continue to raise your vibration today.
Thank you for bringing that up because it brought to my mind where we did an aura session that we had to go back through generations for a high blood pressure. This was generations back, like we're talking over 10 generations, and we had to find the original point of where it came through the family line. You would not know that, just looking at you going to the doctor, they don't go that deep. So that's the beauty of aura. You can heal wounds that go back thousands of years that you don't even know. Well, you don't know consciously right now, but in the session, you go to that exact point of what happened, you name it, you clear it. And this person has contacted me and perfect blood pressure after, doctor being like, you have to go on meds, which then brings me to the way we have shifted timelines. Nelson Mandela. Do you remember when he passed away? Well, he didn't. I think it was in the 80s. I was young, so I don't really remember the specific time. We're going to say sometime in the 80s, but then he was alive and free from jail and living his life. That is a positive timeline change, and we did it. Everybody on that timeline shifted. And those of us who can remember the negative inorganic timeline, what a beautiful surprise to find out he was still alive in the 90s and never died in jail. That is a positive timeline shift. We need more of those. We need more healing on a collective level. These wars. If we erased Tartaria from our timeline, why can't we bring it back by remembering, by tapping into the knowledge asking for that Tesla technology to find us because it's out there. You just have to ask to find it. We can do whatever we want to do. We just have to ask our angels to help us out. We were just having a conversation about a movie, and Michelle was saying there is a hidden audio track to lower your vibration. And I was like, I knew it because the whole entire movie felt off, but I knew I was supposed to watch it to clear it out and to bring it to this podcast, because if I hadn't watched it, I would have never mentioned it. You have to be so aware. They're affecting us through movies, through radio broadcasts. And it's okay if you don't believe us. You may one day, you may not. It all depends on, how deep you want to go into what we have studied. But I'm going to clear that for those who are unaware, because I don't consent to that manipulation. I don't want to know that I am being manipulated without my knowledge. That is dirty on so many levels. I don't want to live my life like that. I am an honest, truthful person. I will tell you the honest answer of what I see at that time, but it may change because we shift timelines. What just happened before may not hold true for now.
Absolutely. And then we won't state specifically the movie, but it's out on the streaming service that has a single letter as its streaming service name, and a past president is involved in getting the movie out. So that's what we'll say so that because I think it's important the movie. And what I'd come across that I'd shared with Dawn regarding this movie was somebody who had downloaded, and he downloads movies and then he edits. And I don't know what his role is, but he's downloaded thousands and thousands of movies, and he showed how the movies have one audio file, one video file. And he downloaded this new movie, and it has 4 audio files. One of them is an infrasonic audio emitting EMF waves. EMF waves are the bad ones, people. So collectively, whoever is watching this movie is being subjected to those EMF waves. Not good. And like Dawn said, we don't consent. Who wants that on purpose? And, if a movie doesn't make you feel right, as Dawn said, when you're watching it, don't watch it. Just because people say it might be good and they feel you can watch it, you have to honor how you feel watching it. Whether you feel you've been trained or not, Dawn and I have done a lot of work in understanding timelines, how to shift them, but it's as simple as saying, I do not consent, period. If there is something you don't, say it 3 times, solidified, I do not consent. And that's all you need to do so that you don't accept that in. And I'm glad you brought up Mandela effect, because here was this positive timeline shift for Mandela effect. And sadly, what's being attached to that name is, of course, we'll go through a couple examples of what's come up around Mandela effect, but they're saying it's a set of false memories. I do not consent to that description of Mandela effect. So if you go looking at it online and they're saying it's false memories, that's manipulation. They're trying to manipulate those of us that remember things a certain way. And it's the concept, I think I've said this before in a past episode, your perception is your reality. We're all on timelines, some, part of collective timelines. When there is so many people remembering the same thing, they were on that timeline. So the fact that someone's trying to suggest that you have a false memory, you are wrong. For those of us that grew up with VHS tapes, which you can't manipulate like you can online movies and the digital remakes of things, and books that are, hard copy books, Berenstain Bears versus Stain Bears. That's one of the Mandela effects. Well, I clearly remember it and see it. I've got books out in the garage, and I don't consent to them saying it's a false memory. Who are they to say my memory is incorrect? That's not any of their business. One of the other ones, the Mandela effect, I'll go through a couple and Dawn can share some as well. Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. That's how we remember it. That's what happened. And the fact is they're saying that it's something different. I am your father or something like that. For what purpose? So you have this beautiful Mandela effect of a positive timeline change. And then all these other things that people are jumping on the bandwagon of saying it's false memories and trying to shame people that no, you are remembering it wrong. People have shared, there's a movie called Shazam I don't know, must have been back in the 80s with Sinbad. There's actually a video of Sinbad saying he did not make that movie. And yet someone found their VHS copy of the movie, played it and recorded it, that he was in the movie Shazam. So either he's outright lying or he shifted a timeline and legitimately doesn't remember doing the movie. But the movie exists. Someone has a copy of it and someone recorded it. And interestingly enough, as you call it, like from watching Marvel movies, finding the little hidden Easter eggs in the movies, there's little Easter eggs, like it shows the Monopoly guy, because that's one of the Mandela effects. And there was something else. There's 2 or 3 things, I think, that are suggested that they're false memories, but they're actually in the movie as well. And they show the images. So, at the end of the day, people are going to believe what they believe. I know my memories are my memories. And anybody that suggests otherwise, well, your perception is your reality. Maybe you actually lived a different timeline, but I don't consent to calling them false memories.
Definitely not false memories. That's absurd. What they're trying to do is have you question your sanity. And I don't consent to that. I know how I grew up. I know what I saw. I know the truth. Don't let them manipulate you, because it's all about manipulation. That is what they're doing. They want you to be on this, herd mentality. Oh, what they say must be true. It's not. And it's interesting that you said that he did not record that movie, because I've actually there's video out there where he admits that he did record it in a off camera sort of like cell phone, hey, did you? So they know the truth. They know that we're being manipulated and what's going on. So are you gonna be okay with that manipulation? I personally am not. This is just not cool on so many levels. And we need to start taking back our power, because we can do it collectively. Feel it in your heart. Know that it's true. And these people who deny that, I've been told that I have too much time on my hands, these remembering of the Mandela effects, I'm sorry, but if you have not noticed them and the manipulations, where have you been? Because you can't deny the Monopoly thing. That is I played Monopoly. That was my go-to game with my brothers on rainy afternoons. It's just ridiculous. I refuse all this stuff that they are trying to change and get, if they had insane asylums, they would be packed right now, because there's so many people that remember this. And it's just manipulation. The way they made us forget about Atlantis, Tartaria, Mu, Pangea. I don't consent to that. The true history is coming back. Start looking for it. The more people wake up, it will surface again and again and again, and it will get stronger and stronger. There is so much more now on Tartaria than there has ever been. And I'm seeing new pictures that are surfacing. So this is beautiful. We are on a momentum of truth being unveiled. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it going, because this is how we shift a timeline.
Absolutely. And I'm going to pose this question to our listeners. What if I told you that these are all little tests, manipulation tests, to see how much the nefarious people out there can get away with manipulating the collective? If they could convince you that you aren't remembering things clearly, that you are wrong, and that whatever information they are feeding you is accurate and you buy into it, guess what? You are on an inorganic timeline, and that is not going to move you into higher vibration. Just think about that. If someone was standing in front of you telling you you're wrong, and you probably wouldn't put up with it. So just because it's online and giving you that information, it is not something that you have to agree with. There's so many things that are just wrong about the Mandela effect. And at the end of the day, what you remember, just honor what you remember. And really, who gives a crap if someone else thinks it's wrong? Really, what is the point besides manipulation? It's move on. But we wanted to address it as part of collective timelines, because I think it is an example of how we are being manipulated. Just one of the many ways that we're being manipulated. Like Dawn said, the Tartaria. If you haven't heard of Tartaria, research it. It really is about what they call giants, but people who are twice as tall, anywhere from 2/3 to twice as tall as us. And there are, like Dawn said, new old photos surfacing of people like it's an everyday occurrence. There's someone who's maybe average height, 5'5", let's say, 5'8", and somebody who is 8 or 9 feet tall. So these pictures are coming to light. They're not doctored photos. They've been authenticated. And if you look around to historical buildings that have not been torn down, look at the size of the door. They're not ornamental. They served a purpose back in the Tartaria days. And that's how tall people were trying to get in. When we were in Nashville and went to the Parthenon, there's doors that are massive, and the columns, these are to accommodate and allow for these taller people to walk into the buildings. So the fact that we don't remember them, history's been manipulated in so many ways. I mean, we can go on and on about the manipulation of historical events, but at the end of the day, keep your mind open. Even if you're not quite on board with some of the things we're saying, that's okay. We're just asking you to keep your mind open of the potential of what we're saying being accurate. Each and every one of us is on our own journey, and soul contracts. I think we talked about maybe doing an episode on soul contracts, because we don't know what each other have signed up for, but we could still live on our highest, most organic timeline that we can in this life.
So true. And I just want to add to Tartaria, start with mud floods, because it does explain how this history was literally buried under mud. And another timeline that I don't want to people to be afraid of is the CERN timeline. People get crazy accusing CERN of manipulating things. Let's not feed that timeline. It is a machine. It is trying to split atoms. Well, we're all atoms and energy. We can shift that timeline to say, you know what? This machine isn't going to work, because we are organic, energetic beings, and we don't consent to this manipulation of what they're trying to do. So let's start taking the fear away that CERN is going to create a timeline shift and open up a portal or a wormhole. I don't even know. Like, there's so many out there. They make these dates. Don't give it any thought. CERN is not that powerful. We as a collective here on Earth and other galaxies and other places, I'm sure people watching or the energetic beings out there, they can feel what's going on. And they're like, come on, positive timelines. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So let's start with that. Like, we are a collective of energetic beings. CERN has nothing on us. They cannot manipulate us like they want us to think. We can overcome that thought and process that they're trying to instill in us and fix that timeline. So let's do it. Let's make things happen and shift for the positive, which, there are wars going on. Let's have a ceasefire. I have heard on the alternative news that there's a ceasefire wanting to happen. Let's make it a reality. I'm done with this fake, false war. I think it's more of a money manipulation. That's what my heart's telling me for other things. And let's be done with it. I don't consent to this. This is not something that's happening in my backyard. And if it was, believe me, it would stop, because nobody should be hurting anybody else. And over what? I'm not even sure what this whole entire thing is about. But let's stop feeding the energy of fear and money and supplies to this and people, if that's what's really happening, because we're over and done with it. People want peace on so many levels, and they're asking for ceasefires. The people who are speaking from their heart are asking for ceasefires. You don't see these politicians or celebrities saying, let's do a ceasefire. Why is that? Because they are part of the system of corruption. If we all collectively started manifesting a ceasefire, I bet it would happen sooner. So think about things that you want to change and be the change that you can bring in.
Beautiful. And as you were talking, the thought popped in my head that I wanted to share. The only way we can be manipulated is if we allow it. Period. Things do not happen to us. We allow it to happen to us. So we can choose not to be manipulated and not to buy in. That's really what we're saying.
In our next episode, stay tuned for soul contracts. Where do they come from? How are they created? Do you need them? Do you not need them? Find out more.
Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Go to embracethespiritual.com for bonus content, and a list of upcoming episodes. To book an aura regression, raw Reiki, or Akashic reading with Dawn, go to her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com. And to book an aura regression, raw Reiki, Akashic reading, or to do a home or pet clearing, visit Michelle on her website at energetisembrace.com.
With infinite love and gratitude, thank you for joining us.